secretariat. So it's a real pleasure actually to be here with colleagues and friends with whom we have worked together for many years already, which already allowed this incredibly ambitious project to be designed and implemented since 2019. So the new generation of the IPCC software was officially launched at COP27, and we are here to give you today an update on its latest and possible future developments. So as you all know, the IPCC Inventory Software is playing an incredibly important role in the implementation by the European countries of the enhanced transparency framework under the Paris Agreement. So we are here today to show you the new features and functionalities of the IPCC software. We will also touch upon the ongoing and planned work being implemented and envisaged by the IPCC TFI to further enhance the software in the near future, as well as the future regional hands-on training workshop to be organized by our unit in close collaboration with the IPCC next year. So please keep your questions for the end of the side event. We will be happy to provide any clarification you require. And let me start after this short opening with a small presentation on the activities implemented by the GAG support unit from the Transparency Division. Thank you, Lisa, for your assistance. Yeah, so I want to actually put in context this work and to show you how important the IPCC software is in everything we are doing in our unit. So we have a few components that drives us for everything we do. So we have some core components, but also cross-cutting ones. The core components are, of course, the sustainable national GAG inventory management system, meaning setting up, maintenance, enhancement of institutional, legal, and procedural arrangements, but also knowledge development through technical capacity on methods, tools, reporting requirements, and incredibly more and more important, the data management and quality that we deliver through data improvement, gaps filling, uncertainty analysis, and time series consistency, among others. But there are also some cross-cutting underlying issues, which are, of course, the reporting under the MRV, but also the ETF, especially through the implementation of the MPGs. So in that context, the 2006 IPCC guidelines for national GAG inventories, including, of course, the inventory software, are at the center. But also, we do not ignore the 2013 supplement to the 2006 IPCC guidelines on wetlands, and also possibly the 2019 refinement, which is used on a voluntary basis by some parties already. Thank you. Next slide. So how do we deliver this set of activities? Through workshops, but also quality assurances, tools and platforms, and also learning and certification. So when it comes to workshops, we used to have regional workshops, but we were short on money recently and there was a COVID, so that was not possible anymore. But we intend to resume these 5-day regional workshops on the building of national inventory system, and also the 2006 guidelines, and especially with the focus on the new software from the IPCC. And that will be implemented from 25 in collaboration, of course, with the IPCC TFI, but also the US EPA for the part of the national system. We also have global workshops, 3 to 4 days, usually global workshops on new tools that our team has also supported the development of SAGE, which is data collection and management tool, and also Mitica for the mitigation. So these have been elaborated in collaboration with GAG, MI, and Gauss International. So when it comes to quality assurances, this is something new. This is purely on demand from developing countries. So if you're interested, please get in touch with me and my team. They're in the room. We can answer your questions after the side event. So we do an in-depth analysis of all your documents about the system and the latest set of inventories, and we provide findings and recommendations for improvement. And that's fully documented, and it's about 230 pages long if you decide to go through this exercise. We also have developed, following this, similar quality assurance workshop for the energy information management system and energy statistics, also energy balances. So it's 4-day in-country workshop, also on demand and strictly confidential, of course, where we deal with energy statistics, energy balances, and this is implemented in collaboration with the IEA and the UNSD. When it comes to SAGE, for example, the platforms and the tools we are using, we actually developed and implemented since 3 years I realize some still don't know what the GAG help desk, so Google it. It's very simple. GAG help desk UNFCCC, you'll go right to the page. You just need to register for free, and then you can browse the discussion threads, pose questions in any language, and they will provide an answer for free, provided you are from a developing country. So please use it and spread the news. And SAGE, yeah, this is sectoral activity data for GAG emissions tool. It is developed for the last 4 years and will be released at next COP, developed by GAGMI. That's a tool actually that will facilitate the implementation of the 2006 guidelines through the IPCC software. And then we have Mitica that was released at last COP last year. This is mitigation inventory tool for integrated climate action. So this is actually taking, to be fully transparent, all the data you have from what you have been using in your database for the IPCC software, and then you can have designing targeted climate action, mitigation actions. So following the nomenclature from the IPCC. And also we have a platform, AFOLU platform, where you can find a lot of information on this topic, although we don't want to compete with FAO, but we're happy to complement that. And we also have some program on learning and certification that we implement through GAGMI platform, but we have provided translation on French and Spanish of all these training and courses and certification. So that's something that was worth noting. Then for next year in 2025, we plan to resume after the last workshop, which was in 2019. It was in Asia. So this one will be for Africa. We'll resume it 5-day regional workshop. 1 day focusing on the building of the national system, because that's key for everything if you want to implement the IPCC, and then 4 days on the 2006 guideline, but with a specific focus on the latest version of the IPCC software. So that's in planning. We don't have the date yet, but we have the host country agreement, which is almost ready. So just watch our webpage and you'll find a lot of information on this. Then just to summarize what I've just said, the 3 tools our team has been supporting since 2019 already is the main one is the IPCC software, of course, at the center of the slide, but also the SAGE, the data, sectoral activity data, as collection and management tool that will facilitate your life actually to use all this data into and input it into the IPCC software. And then taken from the IPCC software, all the information you have can be used by Mitica to help you design targeted mitigation actions, policies and measures and so on. So you'll be fully transparent if you use the 3 tools. Of course, it's purely free and on voluntary basis, but it will help you actually to be absolutely transparent all the way through. And of course, there's another part that is implemented by another part of the transparency division of the secretariat. So this IPCC software is also facilitating the interoperability with the UNFCCC reporting tool. So you see, when you see this graph, you see how important the software is. And that's why we keep doing this presentation and updating and keeping you updated from session to session, because it's really at the center of the ETF implementation for all developing countries. So thank you. That's my short presentation introduction. And this is my email address and the one from my team if you want to contact us. And feel free to Google it later today. All presentation will be on the website. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Dominique. My name is Takeshi Enoki, TFI co-chair. I'd like to say a few words before we get into our presentation. We're very excited to take this opportunity to present to you the features of the newest version of the IPCC Inventory Software. We as IPCC don't have that many opportunities to address parties to the UNFCCC, so this event is very important to us. First, on behalf of the IPCC TFI, I'd like to thank the UNFCCC secretariat, especially Dominique, your team, for the continuous support and collaboration for the development of the software, and also for the interoperability work. The IPCC Inventory Software has made major enhancements in the last few years. In the beginning, it was a simple software, only allowing for users to use tier 1 methodologies. But now, all users can use all methods in the IPCC guidelines for all categories. In addition to this, as I said, in a response to a request by the UNFCCC, we've made efforts with very limited resources to develop an interoperability function to the ETF reporting tool to facilitate the reporting of GHG inventory information by parties to the Paris Agreement. I understand that there's still work to be done on the ETF reporting tool, and this may have some implications on our software, so we may need to update further, but we're happy to do this as we can. Today, I hope that we can go through all the main functions of the software and answer any questions the audience may have. And I also hope that parties that are currently not using the software can consider using this in the future for estimating their GHG emissions and removals, and also for their reporting purposes. I've also been told that there are no data losses when you upgrade your software now. So this is very reassuring for those of you that used the software before, but have not recently. So with this, I'd like to close my opening remarks and move on to the content of our side event. And I have to present the first few slides. So this is just to show that we talk about transparency, but this is not a new concept. It's been here with us since the beginning. This is the UNFCCC Article 4 that talks about the need for all parties to prepare and submit greenhouse gas inventories. Next slide, please. And on the IPCC side, since the beginning, since 1991, authors of the IPCC have been working on methodology reports to provide methodology guidance to the parties so that they can prepare their inventories and submit them to the UNFCCC. Here, maybe many of you have seen this figure, but yesterday I heard that there was, considering all, if you're submitting an inventory for 30 some years, this is 2,000 worksheets or something. So preparing this is a lot of work, but just to say that these are reporting tables, and actually the real work, not the real work, but there's work that goes before filling out these tables, and that's actually preparing your inventories, doing your estimations. And this is what the IPCC inventory software helps you to do. Okay, so these are reporting tables, but there's actually work that goes before this. And we are here today to talk about that part of your inventory preparation process. Next slide, please. And so today we will talk about the evolution and features of the software, and then followed by a demonstration, and talk a little bit about the next steps. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Sandro.
Thank you, Takeshi. A few slides about the software itself, and then the most important section will be the demonstration, because we have presented many times the software, but to see it working is much better, more interesting. So the software is complete. The software that we are releasing version 2.9.2 today. So will be in the website tomorrow, the day after, in these days, it will be published in our website. This version is complete in the sense that you have all IPCC methods and approaches in. It contains already all IPCC default data, so user just select those from drop-down menus. It implements the AR5 global warming potential, but allow user to input any other metrics. So you may also then see differences in terms of total emissions, sector emissions according with different metrics. And there are also the cross-cutting elements which are in uncertain analysis, key category analysis. We will see at the end of this event that we are still working on these two elements. At the end, the inventory, the software, the IPCC Inventory Software, allow you to prepare a national greenhouse gas inventory for all sectors and all categories in the sector. So a complete inventory. It's easy to use. If you want to go, actually, the best way to start is to start with the famous IPCC Tier 1, so with the IPCC default method and also default data. This anyhow is a benchmark that you may use to then improve your inventory. It is very easy. You will see from Lisa exercise how easy it is to prepare the estimates. The use of the software avoids methodological and calculation errors. The software has been made implementing IPCC methods and doesn't do calculation errors unless you find a bias, sorry, a bugs. But we tend to say that there are no bugs. If a bug is found within a week, we fix the bugs. This has been the rule in the past 5 years. It worked well, and we never found a major bugs. So maybe very small till now. There are a number of data managers to support and ease the use of the software. We have for fuels, we have for waste. We are adding another manager for solid waste to avoid double counting between categories. We have for F-gases. This is the latest, the biggest improvement. We have for livestock, we have for land representation and land use types. So at the end of your work, you will have a national greenhouse gas inventory that is compliant with the IPCC methods and with the UNFCCC requirements under the Paris Agreement. It's fundamental. It's very flexible. So it allow you to report, to prepare at subnational level. This is a quality very important for large countries, but also for small countries that wish to identify in the inventory their mitigation action within the NDC. And that's why you may use multiple tiers for the same category. You may have different tiers because you have a mitigation action that you want to follow at a higher tier, and the remaining part of the category reported at a lower tier. This is possible. Of course, allow you to input any of your national, country-specific, subnational specific emission factors. You may work in a net, so the same database can be shared by many users. And this is also a way to facilitate the data collection. Different offices may access the database and input the data according to the needs. And then you have everything in a single database. And this is a quality that also for developed countries, for underdeveloped countries, is very useful because usually a greenhouse gas inventory is a collection of hundreds of Excel washes, different routines, maybe R, documents, and so on. If you use the software, everything will be in a database. You don't have any loss of data. You don't have a loss of information across cycle. One of the main challenges that, for my experience, I found in developing countries is that the loss of knowledge because experts move. And moving the expert means losing some of the data, while the software will ensure this continuity. As I said, you are confident that the inventory is consistent with the requirement. The architecture, let me go fast. Okay, these are the functionalities. There are administration functionalities. There is a data archive. I guess I already almost said everything on this. What is important is access database. So it's a Microsoft software. So it doesn't run, it doesn't go on Apple computer. I'm sorry for that. We will be happy to do another version Apple compatible if somebody find the money, because it will be a big amount, a large cost. We don't have those. Please note that the database, not the software, the database is protected by the password. If you lose the password, you don't access the database. We do not provide a service for database recovery unless you are an important party. And no, I'm joking. We don't do this. Under extreme circumstances, we may consider to do something, but we don't. Anyhow, we cannot recover that. Even us, we cannot recover the password. The password lost cannot be recovered. of course, you may access the database cracking it, but then the software is not capable to read anymore that database once cracked. This is an example of the worksheet. You see there is a navigation panel on the left-hand side, where you have all the categories. Clicking on those in blue, you access the worksheets to make the calculation. This is the worksheet. There are various functionality section in the worksheet. I guess you need to click everything. No, okay, it's fine. So this is important. There are 3 color codes, also a fourth. I guess we have also a fourth element. Yeah. Eccolo qua. Yes, there is. So there are 4 colors. Is important. Blue means that is from the 2006 guidelines. You input the data. Magenta means that comes from the 2019 refinement. Why? Because I know that the Paris Agreement says that you shall use the 2006 guidelines, so you shall use it. But the CRT tables, in some cases, are made consistent with the 2019 refinement, not the 2006 guidelines. So we had to expand the software for those elements to the 2019 refinement. Lilac is the wetland supplement. It's up to you to decide. These are voluntary elements, but we added. And then black is okay, where you have those in black just show you a graph of all the categories together that are under the it. Yeah. This is an example of worksheet. The elements, you have a number of tabs. We call worksheets there, but they are tabs. A fundamental element is the subdivision. Any worksheet allow you to input data at subnational level through the use of subdivisions. Then you have the process, the activity data, depending on the category. You have a section where you input the emission factor parameters. You may select those emission factor parameters from the drop-down menu or inputting it. And in the green cells, always green means that the software calculates the estimate. Then you have 2 additional functionality. You see, you may access the uncertainties, clicking there. Or you may input the time series by clicking the time series functionality. And then there is much more, but we skip. Resources, this is very important. The software implements the 2006 guidelines, does not replace the 2006 guidelines. You shall know the 2006 guidelines. Otherwise, you may even misuse the software. That's why we are to support the use of the software, also in consideration of a IPCC consistent use of the software. We are publishing guidebooks. We already have guidebooks for the general software functionalities. Is a series of PPTs. We have the energy sector, which is by default the most important sector in an inventory. We have for livestock, and for the fall, we have livestock and land representation. We are going to publish soon waste. We are working on IPU. So we hope to have to publish IPU in the next months. But IPU will be published in sections because it is a large sector. And we have also a guide for the use of interoperability. Please, for any question you have, write us to that address. We usually answer within a week, even less. And we are happy to receive questions and to provide answers. But remember that the software doesn't run on Mac. So don't write us. It doesn't run. There's nothing that can be done. This is an example of how the guidebook works. The most important element is the flowchart. The flowchart tells you which are the steps that you need to follow for each category to input the information needed in the software to get the result. This is the example is energy. Energy actually is easy compared to other sectors, but it's the most important. Indeed, energy, Lisa, we show you, can be dealt with three worksheets to do all the two plus the fuel manager that include a worksheet. So two worksheet plus the fuel manager, you do all the energy sector. Only, sorry, the entire combustion, fuel combustion, the energy sector is almost. Okay, in Glasgow, parties agreed to request UNFCCC and to invite us to allow the interoperability between the IPCC software and the ETF reporting tools. This is a win-win option because you do the estimate at once, you do the estimates and you report it. The way we are implementing it, Lisa, we show you, is made in a way that almost exclude the 99.9% of the work that you are expected to do in the ETF reporting tool. Once you have done your work in the software, is almost everything done. Really, just setting your name in the your inventory in the ETF and then uploading all the data. Okay. I guess we are almost Lisa. Me? Is Lisa. This is Lisa.
Thanks. Yeah, so the purpose here for me was to demonstrate this interoperability between the UNFCCC reporting tool and the IPCC software. And this concept of interoperability is basically talking between the two sets of software. So like Sandro said, first you would calculate your greenhouse gas inventory in the IPCC software, having all the benefits of the software, ensuring that your emissions are estimated according to the guidelines, reducing the errors in the calculations, having an archive. So all of these benefits you would do in the IPCC software. And then we have visualized the CRTs in the IPCC software so that you can see what the data will look like when they go into the UNFCCC reporting tool. And I'll show you all of this. And then in the IPCC software, you create a file, a JSON file, and that's just a form of data exchange. That file you will then take into the UNFCCC tool, and you will upload that file there. And that's how you're populating the UNFCCC reporting tool. So I can show you the steps that are there. And if you're thinking from a UNFCCC perspective, and Sandro mentioned that this IPCC software can do really everything that's required ultimately. And so that means what the IPCC software can do is it can calculate your complete greenhouse gas inventory. It takes in the information that will be required for CRT table 9, and this is on the notation key explanations. It allows you a place to enter in your information if you're a developing country who is elected to use flexibility for specific provisions. It has a place for the method and emission factor, which will go into summary table 3. Any comments that you want to put in your official submission, they can go into the IPCC software and they'll transfer there. You can fill in documentation boxes, additional information, and then you can also designate information as confidential. And that is important, we know, because when you calculate an inventory, you may need to use confidential information. However, you don't want confidential information transmitted. So there's a mechanism for handling that. And so with that, I will switch to the, one more slide. I'll switch to the demonstration. I was trying to decide in the past couple of sessions, we have demonstrated the energy sector, and I keep debating whether to go to another sector, but really the energy sector, and as Sandro mentioned too, there are 3 worksheets that if you understand how these worksheets work, you can estimate your emissions for all of fuel combustion. And for many countries, that's like 70% of emissions using a tier 1. If you want to use a higher tier 2 and tier 3, these same worksheets can be used to estimate the stationary combustion emissions. So over half of your emissions with these 3 worksheets. So it's hard to move away from stationary or from combustion in this demonstration. However, if you have questions or you would like to look at other sectors, I would encourage you to download the software. We are in the entranceway right as you come into the building to the right-hand side, and we're happy to sit there and work with you and show you other categories, other sectors. So feel free feel free to stop by. I will switch real quick to the demo and then go back to those last slides. Okay, so again, I know that maybe some of those in the back can't see this very well, but I would encourage you, if you have it on your computers, to come along, or you can join us also, as I said, at the booth. But here is a demonstration of the window that you see when you have the software, once you've downloaded the software and you have started it. You can see on the left-hand side here, this is the navigation tree that Sandro was showing you with the different categories. These are all of the categories from the 2006 IPCC guidelines, as well as the 2019 refinement as needed for interoperability and the wetlands supplement. And so I wanted to show you an example of how to do this whole process of interoperability, how to enter the data in the software, and then how to generate the JSON file for the UNFCCC reporting. And I will show from petroleum refining because it's a simple category here. But again, what I'm going to show you would work for electricity generation. It would work for road transportation. It would work for commercial buildings. So it's applicable across the combustion. First, you have this fuel manager. This is one of the data managers that Sandro referred to, and it includes all of the fuels that are already in the 2006 IPCC guidelines. So the software is pre-populated with this list of fuels, with the net calorific values from the guidelines, as well as the carbon contents. You can change any of the parameters here to have your own country-specific NCV or country-specific carbon content. You can add fuels down here if you have country-specific fuels that you would like to track. So it's fully customizable, but it helps to facilitate data entry and to avoid errors. So anytime you're doing something for the combustion area, you would first ensure that your fuel manager is up to date and save that information. And this will help you populate the tables. So here we're in petroleum refining. For a simple example, I assume that I'm just going to do an estimate for my entire country. And then I select the fuel that is used for refining. We'll say residual fuel oil. You can have different units. I'm just going to say terajoules. And when I do that, I don't have a conversion factor here, but if I were to say gigograms, if I have my activity data in gigograms, it will pull the conversion factor from the fuel manager. And you enter the amount of fuel consumption that you have for the industry, for the sector, and then you have your total consumption of fuel. So 1,000 terajoules of residual fuel oil used for fuel combustion. So this was the fuel combustion tab up at the top. The second tab, these are the two tabs, fuel combustion and fuel combustion emissions. This is the tab that will let you estimate your greenhouse gas emissions from petroleum refining. And I think another point, when you look at the other sectors, it's very similar. You often have one worksheet that's used for the population of activity data, and then a second worksheet that will provide the additional parameters or emission factors needed to estimate your emissions. Sometimes it's in one worksheet, but this is also common in many sectors. So when you're trying to estimate fuel combustion emissions, it carries over the information you added on your consumption. So you have every single subdivision, whether it's one country or maybe you want to estimate emissions for a state or a region, or even down to the facility level. As Sandro said, again, you could use this for tracking various actions. It carries that information over. Then to add the information for emissions, there's a very small plus sign here that you have to remember is there, which you can open up. There are a number of factors here. These two worksheets will work for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And so there's additional information here that will allow you to use the higher tier methods. But say I don't have any information at the higher tier. I don't know about the technologies. You can also just say that you have unspecified technologies. Everything is the same across the country. And then, as Sandro mentioned, the default emission factors are available here at your fingertips. So here you can select from the dropdown a default CO2 emission factor available from the guidelines. CO2 captured, I'll say 0 for now. You can select the methane emission factor, again, already populated from the 2006 IPCC guidelines. If you have a country-specific value, you can choose to overwrite that value, starting to move towards higher tiers. Similarly, for nitrous oxide, you can enter in the emission factor from the guidelines, and it will calculate your emissions. And it's really as simple as that. I mean, the hard part is getting the activity data to put into the inventory, of course. I mean, you always have to have the activity data, and that's where the challenge lies. But once you have that activity data, this will reduce a lot of your errors, because it's a matter of the calculations are done for you consistent with the guidelines. So when we're creating an inventory, then you would do that for all of the categories that are relevant for your country, and estimate the emissions. So once you've done that and you're ready to start preparing for the UNFCCC reporting, and so that's where this piece on interoperability comes in. And the software now, you can start generating the visualized CRTs. These are not the actual CRTs, but what it's doing is helping you to see what your data will look like in the final submission. So to generate the visualized CRTs, there's a menu here up top. You go to Export, Import, Export to the UNFCCC CRT. And what you're doing here in this stage is creating a CRT data set. This is the data set for which you want to prepare. You can create multiple CRT data sets. I'm going to do a new one here, so you can see it from the beginning. And I'm going to show what I filled in was 1990, but you can populate as many years as you want. You can actually create this data set for more years than what you intend to ultimately submit to the UNFCCC. So this is not necessarily what will go to the UNFCCC, but you're starting to prepare it. And then the system will ask me, would I like to perform data collection for my newly created CRT data set? And I say yes. What it's doing now is it's mapping all of the individual cells in the worksheets that we just showed you to the corresponding place in the CRT. So where did the activity data go in the CRT? Where do the emissions go in the CRT? You would think it's a very simple one-to-one mapping, and in many cases it is, but the CRTs are different than what the 2006 guidelines say in places. I mean, a clear example is the 2006 guidelines has AFLU, whereas the parties have agreed to report LULUCF and agriculture separately. So there is a mapping that has been done. I mean, if you really like details, you can look at that mapping. They are going to be appended to all of the guidebooks that Sandro mentioned. You can see now the one for energy at the back of the guidebook. There's all of these Excel tables that show you how this mapping appears. And so then I've created the data set, and now I'm going to open it. I'm opening BON. And this, for those who have dealt with CRFs over the year and now the CRTs, this should be very familiar. These are the visualized CRTs. We have them for all sectors. IPPU, as Sandra mentioned, we have half of it now, but the rest, the F-gases, will be available shortly in the next couple days. And for each sector, you can see all of the tables. Oh, I populated the wrong year. Sorry, hold it. I have to uncreate a new CRT data set. 1990. And it's compiling again. Yeah, so it has all of the CRT tables for all of the years. And then you can go table by table and provide all of the additional information that is needed for the UNFCCC reporting tool. So open these tables, then it will be populated. So this is for 1990. And you can see here all of the data that were in the data set. All of the information that was in the IPCC software has now been moved to the corresponding section of the CRTs. And what we did was petroleum refining, and you can see that estimate here. Probably very small where you are. But all of the information has translated here. In the big picture, you can see there's a legend at the bottom. This includes all of the footnotes from the agreed CRTs, so you can make sure that you understand what the reporting is. There are some notes on the right-hand side called IPCC Inventory Software notes. These may be helpful as you're finalizing the CRT. But what you want to do now, once the data are all in, you want to check your data and make sure that all information is present. So for example, you know, when you report to the UN, you have to provide explanations if you use NE, not estimated, or IE, included elsewhere. You can do this in the software, and that you do it here. For example, if solid fuels, what has happened here is the software automatically assumes that if you don't put something in there, that it's been not estimated. But say for your country, it's not that it's not estimated, it's not occurring. You can change the notation keys here, doing this for one cell or multiple cells. And you can change the notation key from an NE to an NO for not occurring, for example. That information will then transfer to CRT table 9. You can select these and say you want to provide information as to why it's not estimated. Again, you can right-click, edit, and then a mask appears where you can do a number of features. I want to first show the NE function. Here, you can provide your explanation as to why this was not estimated. So you could say, for example, data not available. Click Save, and that explanation will go into the UNFCCC reporting tool, and it will ultimately populate CRT table 9. The same thing will happen if something is an IE. You can change it to IE by doing notation key, changing it to IE, and then again, providing that explanation because you need to provide an explanation. You can put that information here and it will go to CRT table 9. If you want to put a comment on a cell, if you've seen some of the CRFs, and what will happen in the CRT is a user or party can provide an official comment on a cell. You can do that here, again, by right-clicking, and you can have an official comment here. You can add that, and that will transfer. You also can provide various user comment internally if that's for yourself for future consideration, but it will not transfer. It's not needed in the UNFCCC reporting tool. You can make data, I mentioned before, you can make data confidential. If this, actually, let's do activity data. If these activity data are confidential, you can change this to a C. This is something you're going to want to look closely at if there are data that you're concerned about and that are confidential, because there are various rules in the software and in the UNFCCC reporting tool about how confidentiality works. But you can make this a C up to a certain level, and then that information does not transfer to the UN reporting tool. It's important to know with confidentiality, though, ultimately, the total emissions must be there. Confidentiality doesn't mean you don't report something. It means it's aggregated at a higher level. And so you want to look closely at this, but this is how you can make the data confidential. And then finally, another feature is the method and emission factor. This is summary table 3. And here you can add information on the method and emission factors used. Again, to show you can do it in the software. This is method. I selected multiple cells, so I'm going to check this box which says what I'm about to say applies to all of these cells, and I'll say I use the tier 1. And so then tier 1 populates there. Same for the emission factor. Oops, I apply the default to the whole area. So all of this information on method and emission factor will also transfer to the UNFCCC reporting tool. So this is all of the information that you need. If you find that you've made a mistake, you can go back into the worksheets and you can make a change and then refresh the tables here, and the information will update and reflect the latest information available. Yeah.
Just an addition. In the current version, you need to do this for each inventory year. We are working to make the software capable for you to do this only once for the entire time series, because otherwise it's quite repetitive. At the moment,
yeah. So I think I have a little bit of time, so maybe I'll just show you quickly before doing the generation of the JSON file. I just Yeah. I wanted to show you quickly an example with agriculture, because what we showed you was a relatively simple example, but I wanted to show it with agriculture. Well, maybe I don't have as much time as I thought. Okay, yeah, just to show you with agriculture, for example, you have several tabs here. But if you're using a tier 1, you're not using all of these tabs. You're just using one tab for what is your activity data, what are your livestock, and how many do you have. And if you say you're using a tier 1, there's only one other worksheet that you have to fill in, and that's methane emissions from enteric fermentation, where you have the default emission factor. The guidebooks are going to be critical tools for you to see. Like if you're just using a tier 1, these are the worksheets that I need to use to create my greenhouse gas inventory. So I'm going to go back to this, since it doesn't seem like there's a lot of time, and generate the CRT, the file for the CRT. So I was in bond 2. What I want to do now is to generate this file that will be used for the UNFCCC reporting tool. So all I have to do is say generate JSON, and I can create a JSON file for the entire inventory. I can create it for a sector. I can create it for a table. I can even create it for a category. And then you create that JSON file for 1990. I say okay, and it saves it to my computer. You will take that file then. You will take that file then, and you will log into the UNFCCC reporting tool. So we don't have the UNFCCC here today, so we worked with them to have some screenshots so that you can see how this interoperability works. But basically, you will log into the ETF reporting tool, and one of your options for preparing your inventory is to create it from a JSON file, to upload a file. So you select that file, you go through a number of version settings, to like some of your selections, like will you use flexibility or not? Which approach have you used for LULUCF? So you have a couple of questions to answer on version settings. But then once you upload that JSON file, you will see that there are data entry grids for every single category in the UNFCCC tool. The JSON file has populated those data entry grids for you then. So you have the fuel consumption, you have all of the information on method and emission factor, the emissions. The green cells in the UNFCCC tool are tools that are cells that have been calculated. So all of the aggregations that are required in the CRT, the IEFs in the CRT, all of this is automatically calculated. The documentation box, if I had filled it, would have been pre-populated. It would have been populated here. So really, all of the necessary information will be in the tool. Of course, you need to QA, QC your data, but the IPCC software allows you then to populate everything. And therefore, you have a start of a sustainable system. You know, you've made that first submission to the UNFCCC. Then you can go back to your IPCC software, and you have the base for the next inventory system. So I'm going to pass it back to Sandro for moving for our ongoing work and what we're doing going forward.
Yeah. And then questions. Okay, it's just one slide. What we are doing now, the interoperability is completed in this version that we are going to publish the next few days. There is a lot of work on testing, of course. This will be a never-ending activity. Our priorities for a next version that should be produced for COP, let's say, is the export-import functionality. At the moment, you need to export year by year, so import year by year. In that next version, this functionality will work for multiple years. So you will export multiple files, still one file for each year, but then import also multiple files. The work on guidebooks is critical, not only to help the users, to support the users, also to transparently present what the software actually does. Because from the guidebooks, you fully understand how the calculation is done, and not just what you need to do. We will work on some step-by-step exercises for the default methodologies, so something very basic for beginners. We are working on land representation tools. I don't know when this will be ready. One tool is with FAO, the most important is an add-on. So IPCC works on methods, doesn't work on activity data, methods and emission factors. However, recognizing also thanks to the support of the secretariat, UNFCCC secretariat, that the most complicated data-intensive element of a greenhouse gas inventory is the land representation. There is a lot of requests for support, also not just on the reporting, but just also on data collections. With FAO, we are working on an additional piece of software, so a separate software that would allow the user to collect information on the land through visual interpretation. The tool will allow also to correct for the bias the data collected. Will produce then a land representation. It will export a land representation in a file, XML, that will be readable by the software at once. So this this is a big improvement. Cut most of the time you need to do a greenhouse gas inventory and avoid a lot of errors, because when I do the exercise for the land representation, I realize that myself I do some errors in data input because it's a lengthy process of a lot of numbers. And this is, we are committed to also fix, of course, testing means also that any bugs is found by us, also by the users, is fixed usually in a week. If it's a major bug, we release a patch. This happened only once, I guess, in 5 years. So usually the bugs are very small. We may fix in the subsequent versions. And what is very important is any version released is fully, the database of the old versions is fully consistent with the new version. So when you open a database prepared with the old version, the database is automatically updated to the new version. Good practice is to make a copy of the database before you do the conversion, because in case there is a bug in this functionality, you may risk to lose the data. So better to copy it. But anyhow, this means that you may work with the software immediately. You don't need to wait future versions, because any data input now will be used in whatever future version of the software you will be using. Okay, to download, this is a QR code that brings you to our web page. Please be aware that there are two versions of the software, 32 and 64-bit. And if you install the wrong version, the software doesn't work. It gives you a very strange error message on the translation tool. So if you see something that says the translation module doesn't work, it means that you actually installed the wrong version of the software. And anyhow, write us, we are happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandro and Lisa. It's quite impressive. Actually, I remember where we were in 2019, where we are now. It's really day and night. So, so now we have time for Q&A session. We have 15 minutes. So I cannot imagine that you don't have any question for colleagues from IPCC. So please just raise your hand and just introduce yourself before asking the question. Yes, please. We're bringing you a mic. It's
yes, thank you much. I'm from Vietnam. So thank you very much for interesting presentations. I learned a lot from that. And I wonder how to customize the software we would like to have it in our language. Thank you.
I cannot show you the software. If you go on the Windows, I don't know, you can do in the Windows. No, in Windows. No, not here. Yeah, it's better. No. The software has two pieces of software. One is the software itself. The other is a translator that allow you to translate each and every word in the software from the English language to your language, and then you have it. I guess, eccolo qui, translation editor. So you have this one. You see, this is for the Slovak. The company that is developing the software is in Bratislava, so Slovak Republic, and they did in Slovak. But you just select to add. You add. You select. I guess Vietnamese should be already here somewhere. But then you need to provide the software the translation for each and every word, and the software will speak your language. Eccolo. You see, this is Vietnamese. Of course, now is empty, but you register. It's translated. In our website, we already have a translation provided gently by a very nice colleague from Mauritania, in French and in Arabic. If anybody want to volunteer to provide us translation in Chinese, Spanish, and Russian is welcome for free. Volunteer, I said volunteer. Volunteer. Volunteer, we will be happy. Is a question there.
Please use the microphone because we are recording, so thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Renuka Thakur from UK, and I have my own network around the world, 7,000 coordinators in 170 countries. I'm also building communities carbon calculator, and I would like to provide you a support with translation, as you mentioned, Chinese, Russian, and Austrian language. Also, many other can be possible. Secondly, I would like to know, I mean, I did not attend the full session, so sorry if I'm ignorant about this thing. So one is that, is this tool applicable globally equally, in a sense of, does it have a national carbon emissions factors and so on? And secondly, are you doing any agriculture or farm-based carbon calculators? Because I have a UK farm carbon calculator fully established on this. And also relation to transport and energy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. The software is consistent with the 2006 IPCC guidelines. So in terms of, are there emission factors, are there various factors in there? All the factors that are in the guidelines themselves and the 2019 refinement where we use it, they're all available there in the dropdowns. If you have additional country-specific information, you can always enter that and overwrite the values, but the defaults that are there are those that, so in that sense, it's as globally applicable as the guidelines are applicable. So all countries can use it. And that's true for LULUCF as well.
Yeah, and then farming, we have the follow sector, so agriculture is there, yes. Just you need to have the knowledge to use the IPCC guidelines for your farming. It's not extremely complicated. I mean, I guess it's possible. Yeah.
Any other question? Don't be shy, that's the time. We still have 10 minutes. Need to use it. Yeah, please, colleague, just if somebody can bring microphone in front. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much for the demonstration and clarifying on many aspects. My question relates to interoperability. You just explained us how it works with the other systems, SAGE, ETF, Mythica. What about the national MRV systems? Can we somehow make it interoperable with the national MRV systems? Yes, IPCC.
The software can be a portion of your system. The software allow you to compile the data in a single database to do the estimate to report. So it has three functions of your archive, estimation, and reporting. Of your doesn't collect data. The add-on of the FAO is producing will also, just for the line of presentation, but anyhow is a big issue, also cover the data collection. So you have the entire MRV almost. Yeah. So make it part of your system. Yes.
I mean, we are not, of course, going to develop from the scratch the IPC, but we somehow developed a QA/QC in our system, and after collecting the data, of course, we integrate it into IPC software itself, and then exporting and putting to our system, just to make this process smoother.
See, this is a request of many countries. The software reads only data compiled in the time series Excel washes that he produces, or from databases that are. There is an issue of signature. So you may reproduce perfectly the XML file, but the software doesn't read it because there is not a signature. The FAO tool is an exception because we allow the exception in the software. We cannot do this for everything because the problem is, if that doesn't work, you ask us why it doesn't work. How we may do this? We cannot manage it. So to many parties, the answer is always the same. Compile the data into the software. You may compile it also into a database of the software. You generate the database from the software, so there is a signature. You compile the data into the software, into the database with some application that you have, I don't know. But this is prone to a number of errors. It's very complicated because an inventory is not rocket science, but it's not banal. So to do this activity will cost you an enormous amount of efforts and frustration, while if you input the data into the software, it will be much simpler and faster, I suspect, without errors. So I don't suggest you to go in that direction. But in theory, I tell you, you generate a database with the software, so the database has signature. You compile the data into the database according with the software structure. I guess that, but this is, I cannot answer. We need to ask TFI. So the co-chair maybe we may also publish the map, let's say, of the database, and then you know where information is. This is not a secret.
Actually, would be very helpful.
This can be done, yeah, of course. But I mean, and then if it doesn't work, don't ask us why, because we don't know. That's the problem. I mean, here you have mostly half of the people that work on the software. So there are 200 parties in the UNFCCC almost.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody wants to share? Yes, maybe in front, the gentleman, and then we go at the back. Oh, you want to start by the back? Okay, so, sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sandro, Lisa, and IPCC for what seems to be a lot of improvement over the past one, a lot. Thank you so much for that. But just two small questions. Does it allow for a mix of tiers, like if he use like default and also some national data? This is one question. And is it compatible with Mac?
As Sandro will tell you, no, it is not compatible with Mac, but if anyone wants to support, yeah. For your first question on the multiple tiers, yes, you can use multiple tiers. If you have like part of a country where you can do a tier 3, you can do tier 3 for that subdivision, and then a different subdivision you could do tier 1 or tier 2. So you can use multiple tiers within a single category.
Within the same worksheet.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I may just add about Macintosh, just a few years ago, I don't know now the situation because we're not using Mac at the secretariat, but there was an emulator, PC emulator from Oracle Maybe you can Google it and find it if there's a new version that is able to run the software. It used to be in the past, but it was a bit problematic.
Yeah, the emulator is there, but the software doesn't work anymore with the emulator. It's too complicated. It doesn't work.
They work too hard on it now.
See, the very basic software that was years ago was emulated more or less. But since now, no, it doesn't work anymore. Doesn't work. And so,
Okay.
it really is a matter of funding. You need some $1 million to do
If you're not Tim Cook, just let him know we need that.
We need to do a Microsoft free software, and that can be run in the Mac. I know it's important, but
Okay, thank you. Mayor Antonio from Sao Tomé and Príncipe. We speak Portuguese. I don't know if the software have the translated to Portuguese, but my question is, I would like to see an example for the forest sector, because then the training, I will never see a complete example for forest sector. Then the new software, new version of the software, it is complicated to estimate the follow sector in the software in this version. It is too complicated, more complicated.
the main complication in my view is the lender representation with is at the basis. You cannot do a forest exercise without before preparing a land representation, because that's IPCC. In the website is published a guidebook for land representation. There are 2 examples. Please have a look. To me, they are very instructive. It shows that at the end it's not so complicated. It's not easy, but it's not so complicated. But that's why we are working, we are pushing FAO to complete that add-on, because it's a game changer. Examples, GFI, you know the GFI, the Global Forest Observation Initiative. Last year, in May, I made a presentation on the use of the software for RED+. So it was a forest exercise. I guess the presentation are online, so if you go there, you may see that presentation, which is a starting point. For sure, at the global demonstration workshop that will be done now I know from 4th to 6th September in Baku, so soon, there will be a one exercise, of course, it will be forest, because energy is the most important, and then the forest, that is the situation in a greenhouse gas inventory. But the complication, in terms of complication for calculation, the most complication is because you have a different approaches, methodological approaches. But once you have selected the approach, it doesn't seem to me so complicated for us. The complication is to put the active data, yes, and it cannot say, I mean, it's there, but is unavoidable. We are trying to minimize it by the land representation shall be there. You have an entire chapter, in the guidelines, land representation. But the implementation of the equation is not so complicated at all. Actually, the software, so far as I know, is the only software that calculates correctly the soil organic carbon stock changes according with approach 1, approach 2, and approach 3. Because everybody fails with approach 3 of the IPCC guidelines. So it's quite powerful. It's not complicated. The land representation, yes, it is. But we cannot avoid. We are trying to simplifying it to support, but it's not avoidable in a greenhouse gas inventory. And if you don't use our software, you don't have a consistent land representation. I mean, many countries survive without, but you will have problem in the inventory.
You have time for one last question? Yeah, the gentleman here.
So one last question. Whether this software identified or defined the baseline the baseline emissions, which are, as the indice targets are for developed countries are different, and for developing countries, these are different. So whether that baseline is defined in the software, or whether we have to put the data right from the, 1990, 1980 years like that.
The software reads one database at once. So you cannot read in the same database, in the same software, visualize in the software two databases, one baseline and the other the actual emissions removal. However, just because I quoted the example that I shown at the GFI, you may compile two databases, one with the what you consider the baseline scenario, and the other one with the actual emissions. And I did for Red Plus. So for the Red Plus, I compiled two databases and get the result of the two databases and compare the result of the two databases to show the deviation from the baseline that you achieved. So the software itself doesn't do that, but can be used to do that. And I use it in, I guess, because Red Plus, is based on a reference level or baseline as you wish to go.
Maybe the lady with the hand, and very quickly.
Sorry, just to add on that, I think the database would accept only the one calendar year database, right? And it would be last year. Is it something like that?
You could do a full time series. I mean, I've done multiple databases from 1990 to 2040, so you can do any time series. Yeah.
Yeah, but at one point we will be able to put only 1 year data, right?
No.
No, you can import and export a time series. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So I think now we need to be on time. We started right on time. We're going to close right on time. I really want to thank everybody, colleagues from IPCC, for their time, their presence, and their hard work, and also the audience for the interaction. I think it was good. This is not over. You can continue the discussions with my team, with the IPCC team. They're located one floor up. You'll find them. They have a place. You can further discuss, have demonstration, and please keep them busy. They're here for that. They like to be busy, so don't hesitate. And again, get in touch with us. And all these presentations and the recording of the session will be on our website soon. So just Google GAG support unit UNFCCC. You'll find us. So maybe Takeshi for the final words.
No, thank you again for your time. And as Dominique said, we're at the entrance, right to the right to the entrance. So please stop by if you have any questions. Thank you very much.